Welcome to this edition of When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine, a discussion of sustainable living and what that means to you and me. I'm Jay Warmke.
And I'm Annie Warmke, remotely
socially distancing.
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk about how every dollar you spend is a vote, or how to become an angry consumer.
I was born an angry consumer.
Well, it's not difficult right now
No,
to be
it's
an
not.
angry consumer.
I really hate, not that I liked it before, but I really hate going to the store now. I have become an online consumer, which has its own challenges.
And that's one of the drawbacks, because really what we're talking about is, you know, we've always said on this show, and whenever anyone will listen and doesn't walk away thinking we're as annoying as a Jehovah's Witness or something.
Oh my word, Jay.
To say that, buy locally, support people that you support, buy less.
Yeah, I still do that.
Buy used things.
I still do that.
Right. But if you're just going online, it's very, very easy to just, type into Google.
No.
First thing that pops up is going to be Amazon.
Yeah, no Amazon for me.
And then you're going to help make Jeff Bezos a little bit richer.
No, it takes some effort. That's what we're going to talk about today, is how to take that anger and turn it into something useful that you're going to feel good about.
Right. And I think hopefully we'll talk about that. You got to be annoying as well, right? Because it's one thing.
No, I'm never annoying.
No, I know, but yes. So it's one thing to practice to make every dollar a vote, but you got to tell the people you're voting for them. And you got to tell, more importantly, the people you didn't vote for that you didn't vote for them because they did something you didn't like.
Yeah, repeat that 10 times.
Okay.
All right. So the goal for me is that I want to support companies and businesses and services that don't take away from the future in their practices with their employees, with their products. And I don't want to give or vote with my dollar with people who are greenwashing. And there's a lot of that. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So the basic thing is, how can we vote with our dollars? First of all, I always say I work hard for every dollar I make, and I don't want to invest in things I don't believe in. And that's really what this comes down to. So it also comes down to, how do we get into the practice of saying, what's the criteria we have for the companies that we vote with our dollars or their services? And I often think about, we have a local company that does embroidering for hats and T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. And never to buy anything from there, even though I tell people not to, because they're nasty to their employees. They're nasty in their business practices. And it's widely reported, but they don't seem to care because they're all family owned. Everybody knows them. And they're a big company.
They all went to school together.
Probably, or their cousins did anyway. So.
Well, but conversely, I know, for instance, like John down at the local hardware store, nice guy. We know his philosophy. We know his business practices. We know
his husband.
We know how they operate. We know their employees are well treated. So we want to support them, even though it may cost a little bit more money than if we went to Home Depot or someplace like that. But we know them. We're wanting to support local. That's easy to do when you're buying face to face. But when you're online,
but you can now, during the pandemic, there have been many changes. And one of the changes is that local companies like the hardware store that John manages, you can send them something online. You can call them up and you can have them bring the stuff. You can order, like I needed a tea kettle. And I sent something online, and then I called up to confirm everything. And then they said, yes, we have it. And they would have even brought it to the car. So I don't think it's an insurmountable thing.
But it takes effort.
And it takes the will that I have, the will that I don't want to give a dime to Amazon or Target or Walmart, because I work too hard for my money and I want to make sure that it benefits others, that I'm investing in others. So, so what does going green really mean? It really is about workplaces that create a healthy environment for their employees and for their community. And they reduce unnecessary waste. And they also recognize that the role of business is often leading the way for change in our culture, doing better, wanting to do better, recognizing the value of people.
Well, I think it's important that we recognize. I mean, I'll say I can easily conjure this image of corporate greedy SOBs who are just to make a buck. But there are people who go into business who are sincerely trying to do a good job,
Right.
and not just small businesses, some bigger businesses. Uh, it's possible that they are trying their best. So how do you recognize those? I mean, I may have interrupted, and you may have other criteria, but
Well, I just was going to say that 84% of consumers say that they are seeking a positive environmental commitment from the companies that they do business with. That seems really high to me. And why they're picking the environment over things like, I know over 60% of people want to know that the meat that they eat is humanely processed and treated and so forth. So people are thinking about these things. And younger, among younger people, particularly millennials, 90% of millennials are seeking environmentally friendly choices. And so it's easy to be suckered into the greenwashing when that's your motivation. So we've got to learn, how do we kind of back up? And so I want
so once again, we're putting our faith in the next generation, as
to get it right.
all of us tired old white guys are dying off.
Well, I'm not a tired old white guy, and I believe that our goal has to be to look to them to say, we've had our day, and now how do we have your backs? And this is the kind of thing where we can do that, where we can support young people going into business. So some of the things that are really important in looking at a business, and again, not all of this is terribly obvious, but we want to look at how have they developed their company, and have they come in and gentrified an area and put people out, or are they really supporting the geographical location of where they are? What do their buildings look like? How are they producing energy? How are they treating their employees? How are they hiring their employees? Do they have an economy that isn't just rooted in one thing, so that it is sustainable, that if there's a hard time, like some of the businesses have experienced during the pandemic, that they can survive, that they have the ability to be resilient? How are they doing in terms of their production? Is it a dirty production? What are they doing with the waste? And are they reusing the waste? What are they doing about pollution? And their ecological impact by their consumers and by their own consumption. So there's a whole lot of things that go into this. And so there are big companies that say they have shifted to green. And honestly, if I look into it beyond more than about 5 seconds, it's total BS.
Well, you talk about, their production processes. There's that famous book, Before Cradle to Cradle, where they talk about the entire production cycle, from mining the materials that are being used in the product all the way to disposing of the product once it's used up, and how do you then turn that into something else. So it's the cradle to cradle mindset. So you might look at something like an electric vehicle, let's say, which I think are great, but the lithium ion batteries, the mining of lithium, creates huge environmental problems down in Bolivia, Argentina, Chile. So we can't just sort of say, yeah, it's good over here, let's ignore that over there.
Well, it's the same with solar panels. It's the same with anything. There's no real savior for any of this. There's a price, a real cost, a true cost, and then there's a cost.
Well, basically, when you're buying something, it's what is the least bad option. How can we make it the least bad? And that's
Right.
not a very high standard. It's sort of
No,
like
the bar's
Google
pretty.
saying don't be evil.
Yeah,
That's
that's
not a
right.
very high standard.
That's
So
right. Well, and so when we look at companies that are claiming to be green or more sustainable in their practices, like McDonald's and DuPont and Home Depot and Coca-Cola, it's really an insult to the human plight of life to think about it. But if we back up and we say, all right, we're in our neighborhood or in our countryside, and let's just pick some categories like real estate people. So buildings are really powerful when we think about sustainability and resiliency. And we haven't really thought about it that way much until recently. And so so there's actually a designation for a green realtor through the Green Realtor Council. And, and the point, don't make a joke.
I
It's
was just
true.
thinking back when I did real estate, a green realtor was like new to the job. So I was just like,
So
oh man, he's green. Don't buy from him.
yes, all right. Well, that's not what it means. And so the importance of that person as a real estate agent having a designation of being a green realtor is that they're able to understand efficiencies of buildings and homes and what is efficient versus what they say is efficient. They're able to assess the value and the curb appeal of things like solar panels and wind turbines and understand how that influences the sale price. They're able to identify the best brands for upgrades if there is a need for upgrades. So things that are already identified as energy efficient and things like that. And they often can give a complimentary energy audit into in a building where somebody's thinking about purchasing that building. So that's really important. And also, if you're selling your home, you can also get a designation for that being a green building, and so it often will bring a higher price. So these things are valuable, but this is all local kinds of stuff or human relations. We don't think about it like that, but a lot of these companies they hire people and they have people who get sick or have problems, and so they have human relations people, which are basically counselors helping to solve problems. And so there's a designation, green human resources management, and that that company manager, that green human resource manager, is responsible for finding employees that will understand the green policies of the company or corporation and work efficiently within that model. So that seems like a pretty powerful job to have in a company that's trying to be more green and do better in the community.
So you kind of internalize the philosophy as opposed to just pay lip service to
That's
it.
right. Instead of greenwashing, you're really trying. And nobody's going to get it 100% right. But if they're trying, that seems to me like, wow, I want to support that, because the more you support it, the more they're going to say, well, this is going to be economically valuable to my product and my services or my employees or whatever. I mean, when we look at a company like Home Depot that has a lot of products, they might say they're being more green, but how are they evaluating all those thousands of products that are coming in to be sold? They're not. Or these companies online that you can order a lot of these technology products, and they come and they're just junk pieces of plastic. We have to be better about how we look at a product and the life of the product and the corporations. So one way is what's called B corporations. So if you find a company, I think there are about 1,800 certified B Corps in 50 countries in 130 different industries. And these corporations are listed as a B corporation because they are doing specific things around sustainability and being a sustainable practice.
Okay, well, let me interrupt you right there to let everybody know that you are listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke. And once again, want to remind you it is indeed the end of the world as we know it.
And extra, thank God.
Thank God. So you were
Yes.
talking about B corporations, and it sounds like from the number that there aren't that many. It must be a new program. 1,800 corporations is not that many, but it's a good concept. They're basically saying, look, we look at this everything we do from a holistic standpoint, and we're trying to be good.
Generally, yeah.
We're trying to be
But
good.
I'm not sure the low number is because it's fairly new. I think the low number is because there aren't that many corporations actually doing this yet. But as the value of consumers placing the value more and more on these kind of practices and doing some of the things we're talking about, it pushes those kind of things along.
Well, it may be a high bar to reach too.
Well, I think it's things like transparency. The Amazons and the Targets and the Walmarts are not transparent in how they make their money, how they treat their employees. We only know there's bad treatment because the employees end up on welfare in order to make ends meet or get food stamps, or they're ill, or things are happening to them on the job site repeated, like in the meat processing industry. So, but anyway, some of the categories are accountability. So even the directors are mandated to consider the company's impact on all shareholders. So shareholders would be employees. They wouldn't necessarily be people that would hold the pieces of paper, but they're, stakeholders, really.
Sure.
The customer, the suppliers, everybody's in the picture here. So the true cost of doing business is a lot more available and visible than to, a different kind of company. Also, they are evaluating their performance and their assessment. They have a test and a recertification every 2 years. So when they are evaluated by this B Lab, which is what certifies them as a B corporation, they're given things to do to improve their status as a sustainable corporation.
Do you know what B stands for? Just sounds like it should stand
Uh,
for something.
I think it's
Be good, be kind,
well, it is sort
be
of
profitable,
benevolent, yes, or I don't know.
benevolent, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
So if we can't find a B Corp or whatever, what else could we look for? Well, first of all, we said local companies, or even online smaller companies. So you might want to find a book. And so I buy used books. And so when the pandemic came, I couldn't go to the library and buy a used book at the library. So I go to thrift books, and thrift books are reused books. And there are a lot of companies that are selling books that have been used, and the price is generally pretty fair. And you feel good about the fact that maybe of course, the author isn't getting another
Yeah, I
sale
was
price.
feeling that way. I'm feeling it,
I
man.
know when I've seen
Trying to be an author.
when I've sometimes seen our books on thrift books, and they were like, one of my goat books was like 80 some dollars, and I'm thinking 80 some dollars, I'd have to sell a lot of books to get that. But the point is, those books would end up in the landfill, or they would end up burned up or whatever, and so the reselling of that is a good thing. So also, another thing to look for is you can look up ratings. I mean, Google is filled with ratings between 1 star and 5 star for everything.
And they're all accurate.
No, but you can tell when it's somebody that works for the company that's written the evaluation versus somebody who has not. And so that's another way to look, just to see, is the customer happy? And that's not always true, but I do know lately I've seen some companies that say they do a follow up with you. It's not like they're saying, would you rate me? They're just saying, did you like what we did? And if something's wrong, anything's wrong, I'm the head of the company. Please get in touch with me before you rate us online, because we want to make it right. Well, I like that. And it's always a smaller company doing that kind of thing. What are their employee policies? Do they march that up front because they're proud of how they treat their employees and what they offer them? Or is it nowhere to be found on the About Us part on their website or their Facebook pages or whatever? Have there been positive and negative reasons reported? And what are those, rationally? Sometimes there may be things that are reported negatively. We certainly have had that. And we didn't do anything wrong. It's just somebody who's actually mentally ill, writing paragraph after paragraph about some crazy thing that we have no idea. So things happen. Also, check the company's public relations. What has been said about them broadly in the news? Look up their name. And what are their policies around waste? Do they have zero waste? Are they working towards that? Are they working towards their suppliers doing better? A company like Aldi's, which is a grocery chain, has announced that all their suppliers have to meet certain standards now around packaging and things like that. Well, if I'm gonna have to shop at a bigger store that isn't really, it's local, but it isn't locally a local store. I'm going to look at Aldi's and say, wow, they they're trying to get it right.
Right. And that just reminded me, a lot of times people who evaluate these things, it's that old thing about don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
That's
You
right.
know, I mean, nobody's going to get it all right. Nobody's going to get it tick off 100% of the things you're looking for. But what we're saying is first off, do your homework, research, but then try and reward people with your spending, the ones who are trying, you know, and
Yeah.
if they fall short, hopefully you can be annoying, you know, call them up, send them a note, send them an email.
Don't go quietly. That's the angry
Right.
consumer person. Really, don't go quietly.
Well, it reminded me back when we would order pizzas, right? And you would always order a pizza, you know, I call up and then you'd call up Domino's and say, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I just ordered a pizza, but not
No,
from
I
you."
usually would say the how much I spent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not from you because of your, you know, political views towards women. And of course, the poor woman who answered would always go, "Do we have political views
No,
against
she would say,
women?"
I had no idea. And I would always say to her, I'm not attacking you, but I just want you to tell your manager that I
Yeah.
didn't buy pizza from you, and I didn't buy last week, and I didn't buy the week before.
Boy, we ate a lot of pizza.
In those days, I think we did. It was our favorite food.
Right.
So, but
Uh-huh.
we never ate pizza from Domino's.
Right.
So, but the other thing I think that we have to do is to consider we have a lot of people in our lives. If we live in a place where um, we're trying to buy our own home, or we have to keep up a property or a vehicle, so we have plumbers, electricians, car mechanics, places we buy gas, places we buy fast food, places we don't buy fast food, and things like that. And so we could just sit down, anybody could sit down and make a list of the places you normally do business and say, all right, how could I do better with that?
Mm-hmm.
How could I go in and ask the manager, I've got this criteria. Are you doing any of these things, or what's the plan? Maybe the company is planning to do some of those
Well,
things.
you had mentioned the B corporations. I mean, this is a lot of work. I mean, to try and figure out every single thing you want to buy. Are there other designations out there, you know, state level, local level that I could just look at and say, here's the green seal of approval, you know, that's
Well,
cool.
I think there's a lot of things emerging right now, but there's the Green Business Bureau, and then I know there's one for Ohio, and there are for other states. I don't know if there's one in every single state, but Green Business Bureau. And I did look up their criteria, and I wasn't all that impressed because I felt like they left out quite a number of things. But that's not to say that maybe there's in your town or your city there's a tourism office, or there's a hotel association, or there's a business. I can't think of what it's called.
Better Business
Better,
Bureau
no,
or
no,
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah.
and go to them and talk to them. And of course, they might give you the BS answer, but more than likely, they're going to say, oh, we would like to create a rating system, or some towns and cities and states have rating systems. I know years ago I tried to talk to this development people for the state of Ohio for job development and business development about creating a rating system for sustainable businesses, particularly around tourism, and because that's hotels and tourist sites and things like that. And they said, "Oh, we love that idea, but we're not gonna do that."
Mm-hmm.
And I would talk about it being a moneymaker and everything, and they just shake their head. No, we're not going to do that, Annie. Why don't you start it up? You can make a lot of money. And it's like, well, I don't want to start it up, but I have pitched this idea quite a lot to people because I think it would be super helpful to us as people who want to support people who are doing more sustainable practices in their work.
Well, it seems to me, I mean, the internet, the rating service, and of course it's easy to abuse it, but there's got to be a, you know, a sustainability Yelp out there, you know, where people can do these things somehow. Now, it'd have to be set up in a way that's not easily abused or trolled or, you
Well, there
know,
would have to be
manipulated.
criteria and
Yeah.
somebody to oversee the criteria.
Yeah, don't you hate that?
Well, bureaucracy, but there could be, a little designation, a little logo of a designation. I feel like it would be a great thing to have local areas like a city that would come up with a sustainability guide. So every service, whether it's you want to buy food like meats or restaurants or produce, or you want to go to a tour site, or you want to have a real estate agent, the doctor. I one time we had an intern that was a medical doctor, and I really liked him, but he said, I'm a holistic doctor. And I said, I got all excited. I said, wow, that's so cool. How did you get that? He said, I took a 1-hour class. I said, don't talk to me. Do not talk to me. So I want to know more than just to tell me that. But so the medical folks, what are their practices? They have tremendous amounts of waste and hazardous waste, and also not sometimes very good customer service. And often right now we know from pandemic problems, not good treatment of employees. And so this is, across the board. So I think we have to start somewhere, and it definitely has to begin with understanding what is it I do consume, what services I already utilize. And if you have somebody who you vote with your dollars with and they don't treat you well, then stop going there. Stop. Like when I went to the eyeglass place and they yell at me, stay at the door, Yeah. And then when I'm leaving, they're like, where are you going? And it's like, for a walk, because the energy here is really bad. And so I don't want to go back there. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to support them. So I think we have to develop our own will and our own awareness. And clearly people want to do better. 84% of people saying we want companies to do better around environmental issues. But then you got to bring that home to yourself, and you got to say, I have to start with myself, and then I can spread out from there. So start your own designation. It's a moneymaker. Go for it.
Yeah, well, it's you get a few friends together, but it just keeps in my mind
friends together to what?
To all decide that this is the criteria.
Yeah, that would be
and
great.
And then, this sounds very socialistic, right? Because then you begin to cooperate.
And go to Zoom and have a friend meeting and say, where does it? Well, a buying club's a great idea. Then we support the folks and services we want to support.
But once again, don't say that they got to be perfect. Just try and be better.
No, let's see if they're trying to get it right. Right. That's the thing. And so I've got a quote to share. It's like, being socially responsible isn't about putting every single decision you make through a purity test. No company's perfect, but you can make reasonable choices on a day-to-day basis. So try to frequent sustainable businesses that make an effort to maintain a low environmental impact and working towards not taking away from the future.
Okay, well, with that, you have been listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke. We want to thank our producer, Emmy Award-winning and nominated Adam Rich. And we want to thank you for spending just a little bit of time with us. And as your grandmother hopefully told you, the secret to a happy and sustainable life is...
play nice with others, clean up your own mess, and give lots of hugs when you're able to.
Okay. Till next time.
Will sing, and her children will be healed. 'Cause I see the morning glory blossom in the night. Know the stars dancing in the twilight. Soon we'll be together. All will be revealed. Mother Earth will sing, and the children will be healed.
You can find more information on living sustainably in our unsustainable world at bluerockstation.com.